A very good evening, everyone. I, Ashman Gusai, on behalf of UPES-CSI Student Chapter, welcomes you all to this scholarly workshop on Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. UPES-CSI, in collaboration with Reskill, presents the workshop on Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing service created by Microsoft for building, testing, developing, and managing applications and services through Microsoft managed data centers through the cloud, thus negating the need for buying expensive hardware or wasting time in long installation processes and making work much more efficient. So, before starting, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome and introduce our honorable guest and speaker for this going to be amazing workshop, Mr. Ayush Rathi, Senior Software Engineer at Walmart Labs India. Sir is a cloud architect, developer, UI designer, and trainer having experience in bringing applications and cloud services to life. He has a broad technical background, including Microsoft Azure, business intelligence, HTML5, CSS3, open source platform and tools. He has been delivering sessions on Microsoft Azure for entrepreneurs, startups, and university students. Sir also holds a Limca Book of World Record for smallest computer engineer in the world in the year 2000 for assembling the computer, loading the operating and software at the just age of 7. With this, he holds many such elated and appreciable talents under his sleeve, which previously he had also been a senior software engineer at Adobe and a developer at the Tata Research Development and Design Center. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our beloved attendees who have joined us. We expect a healthy participation throughout the workshop. Well, now is the time we get to hear the master's word. Sir, I would kindly request you to start the workshop.
Hi everybody, a very good evening. Hope I am audible to everybody.
Yeah, sir.
Perfect. So thanks for the wonderful introduction, Ayushman. Let me quickly share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Quick confirmation.
Yeah, sir.
Perfect.
Clear.
Perfect. So since Ayushman has already introduced me, I am Ayush Rathi and going to be your host for today's session on Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So let's quickly jump a start onto the Azure Fundamentals. So you're gonna have a thorough understanding of the basics of Azure. We're gonna cover what is Microsoft Azure, introduction to Azure services, and we will also be having a Azure Portal walkthrough and the hands-on on the Azure virtual machine. Now, first of all, talking about why cloud services. So anybody here, any answers on why cloud services? You all have been working on cloud. You have got a couple of stuff done in the cloud. I guess you would also have cloud as one of your core subjects in one of your semesters. So why cloud services? Why cloud computing? Anybody here? Feel free to put your answers, put your questions in the chat as and when required. Anybody? Why cloud services? Because of disadvantages of traditional infrastructure, cloud came into play. Okay, because they are accessible everywhere easily. What else? Customers can get their particular services fulfilled as cloud provide utility based computing. Very true, Karthik. On demand access. Great. Easy access. Ritik, Mancha. Absolutely. So when we kind of sum up all of these things, that's where comes the cloud computing in place. So when we talk about cloud computing, it's basically on-demand computing resources delivered to you over the internet. something that you traditionally did local, that was on your on premises, where companies or organizations or educational institutes used to set up their own IT infrastructure. Rather than they investing in that infrastructure, now they are using an infrastructure which is provided by these cloud providers. So it's now all performed remotely across the internet, which is off premise. All the data center, all the infrastructure is pretty much taken care by these large cloud providers like Azure, AWS, GCP, Alibaba Cloud, and a lot more there in place. The cloud works on the consumption based model, which means there is no upfront cost. Think about you trying to buy a car versus rent a car. Today in this world, we are mostly renting a car. You use Ola, you use Uber, right? That is actually a consumption based model. You don't have to pay the cost of purchasing the car. In a very same fashion, there is no upfront cost to use the cloud. I can get started on day zero with the minimal cost in place. I don't need to purchase and manage the costly infrastructure. In a very same fashion, if I don't own the car, I don't need to pay the road taxes, I don't need to pay the maintenance cost, I don't need to pay the driver cost, and so on and so forth. In a very same fashion, you don't have to pay these infrastructure cost in terms of the upfront cost. So I am not paying the infrastructure cost. It's all the consumption based utilization. It works on the opex model, not on the capex. So you are basically not getting into the capital expenditure. Rather than that, you're getting into the operational expenditure. You pay for the additional resources based on your requirement, and you also have an ability where I can stop paying for the resources that I no longer need. It's as simple as, until and unless I watch movies on the Netflix, I continue to pay the subscription price. The day I think, okay, I no more need this Netflix subscription, you stop paying for it. It's the very same model that you have with the cloud as well. Talking about Azure, so Azure is one of the public cloud providers. Also, they are into the private cloud space with the name of the Azure Stack offering, primarily into the public cloud, where it is a set of cloud services helping your organization meet your business challenges. So with Azure in place, we have got Microsoft, who is behind the scene offering you the Azure cloud, where all the data center or the underlying infrastructure activities are pretty much taken care by Microsoft. You have the freedom to build, manage, and deploy applications on massive and global network. Azure offers you a global network in terms of the overall presence. If I talk about, Azure offers you services in 60 plus regions in 140 plus countries, which is even greater than what AWS and GCP offers you. And you have got your favorite tools and frameworks. So it is not at all that it's a Microsoft offering. So I will have to use .NET or I will have to use C Sharp. No, that's not like that. You are free to use your own choice of tool, whether I want to use Python, Node.js, Java, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, whatever you need, you can go ahead and deploy that kind of application and use your own choice of frameworks and tools. That's where we have got Azure. Talking about the Azure features. So first thing is on-demand provisioning, which means what I need, I can get it on demand. I don't need to provision the stuff in prior. As and when my demand increases, as and when I need resources, I can provision them. So ask for what you need, and when you want to stop. Today, if you need one virtual machine, you provision one VM. Tomorrow, you need two more, you can provision two more. Day after tomorrow, if you don't need all the three, you can decommission all the three. So that's how it works. Scalability in minutes. Now, this scalability factor that we talk about is pretty much important when it comes to cloud. Now, when we talk about scalability, you can scale out or in or down depending on the usage on it. So usually we talk about term called as horizontal scaling or vertical scaling. Now, when I talk about horizontal scaling, we are primarily talking in terms of scale in or out. And when we say vertical scaling, we are primarily talking in terms of scale up and down. A very simple example, you would do online shopping on different e-commerce platforms like, let's say, Amazon or Flipkart. Now, when you purchase a product, usually during the sale events, you would have seen quickly the products go out of stock, right? When the iPhone is sold at a huge discount, you see product getting out of stock very soon. And to cater to that number of audience, which is going to hit that website during that sale or flash sale event, To handle those amount of loads, this scalability plays a very, very important factor, where you can scale up or scale down depending on the requirement, or scale in and scale out depending on the kind of traffic that you have got in near real time. Pay as you consume. So we have pay as you use, also called as pay as you go, or pay per use, or utility based pricing model, or a consumption based pricing model. So multiple different names for this pay as you go model. Focus only on your needs, not on the hardware specs. So when you talk about this point number 4, you are not taking care of the infrastructure. The behind the scene data centers are all taken care by Microsoft. They have got their own people taking care of their data, of the data centers. You just have to utilize the cloud, create the resources, create the infrastructure that you need for your solutions or your applications. So that's where all the resources are abstracted away. When you create a virtual machine, you don't know where is that box of CPU kept. For you, it's a virtual machine, a virtualized infrastructure, a virtualized hardware that you have got in place. Utilize the skills, knowledge, and resources of experts. So efficiency of experts, again, one of the good factors. And today in the industry, the demand has increased a lot for cloud. Going forward, you will see that cloud will be a basic ask when you also look at the job market. Even when you look at from a placement standpoint, having a knowledge of cloud will be a basic requirement. And lastly, measurable. So everything that you use is measured, and you are being charged only for the amount of services that you have consumed or that you have used. So you don't have to pay extra. It's all a pay per use model. The pricing is based on either per minute or per second model. Let's say if I use a virtual machine for 55 minutes, I only end up paying the cost for 55 minutes of utilization. In a very same fashion, if I need 10 GB of data storage today, I only end up paying for 10 GB. Tomorrow my demand increases, I can procure additional 100 GB of data storage. You all would have been using Google Drive or OneDrive or iCloud storage or Dropbox, right? So you pay for the amount of data storage that you have procured. By default, 15 GB with the Google Drive comes for free. If you need additional storage, you pay the cost. So that's all based on the utilization, and everything is measured when we talk about the cloud. Any questions, any queries so far, guys? On demand access, pay as you go model. We have all the required data stored at one place. Perfect. So let's move on. Now talking about the core Azure architectural components. As we talked about, Azure offers you 60 plus regions in more than 140 plus countries. So the presence of Azure cloud is huge. No matter you are sitting in India, you want to spin up a virtual machine in Southeast Asia or in any of the US data centers, you can go ahead and do that quickly. Now, region represents a collection of data centers. So when I say, let's say India is a region, then in India, I can have multiple data centers at different location. So I have in India a data center in central India, South India, and a West India. Namely, Pune, Mumbai, and Chennai are the three locations in India we have where we have got the data centers from Microsoft. So you can select the region which is close to you or your users or your customer. Again, depending on what make more sense for your business. Let's say you want to start your own organization, which is a startup. You want to sell some products which are targeted for the US customers. In that case, you would prefer deploying that application in one of the US data centers, because that way you will be in the close proximity to the US users. As a result, you can reduce the latency, you can reduce the time it takes to hit the application for them. So you basically give them a low latency performance. Also, there are some services on Azure which are global services for which you don't need to select the region. Like we have got Azure AD, Traffic Manager, Azure DNS. So Azure AD is the identity and access management service. Traffic Manager is for routing the traffic between different endpoints across different regions. Again, it depends on what kind of algorithm you would want to use. And DNS is again a domain name service that Azure offers you. So that's about the region. Let me quickly give you a glimpse of the different regions that we have got in place. So we have got the Azure Global Infrastructure. And if I take you to the geographies here, you can see these are all the different regions that Azure offers you. In India, we have got Central India, South India, West India. And if you want to get a global map view of this, you can click on Explore the Globe. And this is where we are on the globe view now.
Excuse me, sir. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I guess the screen isn't visible, sir.
Okay, just give me a minute. Thanks for letting me know. Is this visible now?
Uh, just a minute, sir. Yeah, now it's visible, sir.
Perfect. I will also be sharing this link with all of you. Can you all see the link now? Available with you all? So this is the Azure Global Infrastructure, which is a map view of different data centers across the globe, available in different regions. Now, let's say if I have to look at one of the India data centers, I can simply click on these or these circles that you see. So let's say if I click on Central India, it gives me complete information about the Central India data center. So it's located in Pune region. What about the data residency? How many availability zones are available? Which year did it open? And what all compliances it is compliant with? All of those information is pretty much available right over here. So that's the overall Azure Global Infrastructure view in terms of the data centers that are available across the globe. That's on the regions. Then Azure has got a concept of region pairs. So every region in Azure is paired with a secondary region. For example, if you look at East US or let's say India South is paired with India Central. This is with respect to disaster recovery and business continuity. So Azure prefers at least a distance of 300 miles between two data centers so that in worst case scenario, even if a data center is hit by a natural calamity or a disaster, at least services in one of the another data centers would still be up and running. For some services in Azure, you get a geo replication, which is an automatic replication done to the paired region, while in some of the services, you will have to manually do that replication in place. So whenever there will be an outage, Azure is always going to prioritize the recovery of one of the region as compared to the another. So if you look at this diagram, we have got region pairs, a primary region and a secondary region. Number one talks about replication of virtual machine between the primary and secondary. You will have to do this manually. For number two, we have got a storage. Storage is one such service in Azure where you have a platform provided replication. So you have to just select the choice of data replication option. And based on your selection, Azure will automatically replicate the data between the primary and the secondary region. Similarly, point three talks about the database replication. Again, this has to be done manually. Now, if you look at point five, that talks about distance between these two data centers. So my primary and secondary will be separated by a distance minimum of 300 miles apart. So that in worst case scenario, if a primary data center is impacted, still my secondary data center will be up and running. Apart from it, point six, we already talked about the data replication for storage in terms of a platform provided replication. Point seven talks about the recovery order. Let's say if there is a broader outage where both of my region gets impacted, in that case, Azure is going to prioritize one of the region recovery as compared to both the regions. At least one region will be recovered quickly so that your services are back to life again. Then we have got sequential updates. Now, to maintain their underlying data center, their underlying platforms and machine, they will also have to roll out some updates so that they can provide you the best reliability, best performance, best security, right? So for that case, they do sequential updates. So they will ensure that updates are not rolled out all together to all the regions. because let's say if there is an issue with the update, then all the regions would have got impacted. So they do it sequentially. Let's say they do it for primary region. Once the primary region is back to life again, they do it for the secondary region. Lastly, the data residency. So the primary and secondary region, both of them will be a part of the same geography, which means if my primary region is in India, then my secondary also will be in India. This is with respect to tax and law enforcement jurisdiction purpose, so that all your data resides within the same geography. There is only one exception to this. For one of the region, which is Brazil South, the secondary region is in South Central US. Otherwise, for any of the data centers that you choose, everything will be within the same region. Let me quickly share a link on the Azure paired region as well. Are you getting my links that I'm sharing you?
Yes, sir, we are side by side uploading them also.
Okay, perfect. That should be great. So that's on the region pairs. Now coming to the Azure. So we'll quickly jump onto the hands-on without wasting much of the time on the PPTs, but just trying to quickly understand some core concepts. Now, when you create resources in Azure, first thing that you have to do is create a resource group. So resource group is, you can think of this as a container. When I say container, don't go into the world of Docker and Kubernetes. This container can be acting as a group of resources which will be sharing the same life cycle. For example, when you have to deploy an e-commerce application, what all components do you need? You would need a front end facing application, you would need a backend, you would need a database, you would need some storage where you can dump all the product images and so on and so forth. So when you create these multiple resources, you should be able to put them in one single group so that it becomes easy for you to manage those resources. That's where comes the concept of the resource group in Azure. So whenever you create a resource, that resource has to go inside a resource group. So for example, this is my ecom application. I create a database, I create a backend, I create a front end, and then I need a storage. So I can create a resource group with the name, let's say UPES ecom application. And inside this resource group, I will have all my resources available. Now, the advantage of creating this resource group is I can manage all of my resources right inside this one single group. Tomorrow, if I want to decommission this application, I can simply go ahead and delete this group, which will in turn delete all of the applications or the resources that you have created inside that. And likewise, I can create multiple resource groups. So let's say UPS ecom app. Then if you have got a UPS food ordering application, for example, you can create another resource group. So you can create multiple resource groups, and these resource group would be sharing all the resources inside these resource groups will be sharing the same life cycle. One important thing, if you delete this resource group, every single resource inside this resource group will be deleted. Also, in terms of giving somebody an access to the resources or resource group, I can grant a role based access control here. So if I want to give somebody an access on all the resources which are created inside this resource group, I can use a role based access control in Azure, using which I can grant the access at the resource group level. Sorry. So when you delete a resource group, every single thing in it gets deleted or destroyed. Sorry. And there is no way to recover those resources back again. This is a hierarchy of the Azure Resource Manager. So when you have to start your Azure journey, for now, forget this management group. You people will start from subscriptions. So to watch a movie on Netflix, what is the first thing that you all do? You purchase a subscription, right? You pay the cost for the subscription. So in the same way, when you have to create resources in cloud, where will that cost be tagged to? That is where comes the subscription. So whatever you create will be charged on this subscription. Inside subscription, you create resource group. As we just talked about this is just a placeholder to hold all of your related resources. You don't have to pay the cost for this resource group. And then inside this resource group, you create all your resources. So all the resources will be placed inside the resource group. So that's how the hierarchy functions. You will have an access to a subscription. By default, you all have got a GitHub pack via which you can enable your Azure subscriptions. I guess you all have got $100 worth of Azure free credit available with that GitHub pack. So that starter pack will enable you to use the Azure services and create the resources in Azure. The good part is with that $100 of credit, you can also try out the premium services because that's a pre-uploaded amount that you get. So let's quickly jump onto the Azure portal, which lets you build, manage, and monitor everything, whether it's a simple web app or a database or a complex application with this one single unified console. So jumping onto the Azure portal now. To go to the Azure portal, you can either go to azure.com and then you can sign in here. Once you sign in, it will take you to the Azure portal. Another option is you can go to portal.azure.com. So another is you can go to portal.azure.com. This also will be taking you to the same place. Now, this is how the glimpse of the Azure portal is going to look like. This will be the first view that you will see. Now, when you log into the Azure portal for the very first time, you might be seeing something like this. You might land up on this home screen or a dashboard view. So you have a setting where you can decide on when I sign in to which screen should I land. Should I land to the home screen or should I land on the dashboard screen? I will come to the home and dashboard both. So let us quickly go through the walkthrough of this Azure console or the Azure portal. This is the favorites where you can add the services that you use the most or you like the most. By default, there are some services listed here like app services, databases, VMs, load balancers, Active Directory, virtual networks, monitoring, and so on and so forth. This is a customizable window. I can remove the services, I can add the services to this list. So this is the favorites. Then you have all resources. In this all resources, you will be able to see list of all resources that are currently provisioned, for which you are currently paying the cost, which are currently created in your Azure account, right? Those resources will be listed in this all resources. And in the resource group, you will see the list of the resource groups. Then we have all services. All services is where you will be able to see the list of all the 160, 180 plus Azure services that are available. So we have got different categories like general, compute. In compute, you have got virtual machines. Virtual machine has scale sets, which allow you to do the batch provisioning of the virtual machine. In case I want to create, let's say, 100 or 1000 VMs in one single operation, I can use the VM scale sets. For web applications, I have got app services. For serverless, I have got function application where I can write the code in the cloud and I only pay for the amount of time my code actually runs on Azure. We have got container instances to deploy your container images, the Docker container images. We have got Kubernetes, which is again a container orchestration service. Then on the networking, you have got virtual networks, you have got load balancers. Then we have got public IP address. So a lot of services on the networking again. On the storage, we have storage accounts. Inside these storage accounts, we have got blobs, files, tables, and queues. So blob is basically for all of your unstructured data, whether it is your PPTs, XLS, images, or videos. All of those can be stored in the storage account. Then you have got Storage Explorer, which is a standalone tool that can also be installed on your machines. You have got Data Lake, you have got Azure Data Box. Data Box is again a service where, let's say, if you have got large amount of data that you want to migrate to Azure, let's say it is petabytes of data. So doing it over the network can take huge amount of time and can be a costly affair. So when you go with this data box service, Azure is going to ship some devices to your address. It can be small devices like hard disk, or it could be a big device. And then you can plug and play those devices to your data center, copy all the data and ship it back to Microsoft. Those are tamper proof devices and are all encrypted with 256-bit encryption. On the web, again, we have got app services. We have got app service plans, cognitive services, Signal R, Azure Spring Cloud. Now, it is quite a possible case that one single service may span into different categories. Like app service, we also saw in compute, we see it in web, we also see it in mobile, we also see it in containers. So, one service can span across multiple categories as well. Likewise, you can see we have got databases, we have analytics, we have blockchain, we have AI and machine learning, we have got IoT, mixed reality. So now cloud is not just about storage or virtual machine. The scope of cloud has widened a lot into blockchain, AI, machine learning, mixed reality, and it has really made the life easy. If I simply talk about a machine learning case, I don't have to write all the algorithms. There are pre-fed algorithms. I just have to give the data. It will split that data into two different data sets and then perform the algorithm that you select. So it has made your life much more easier. Similarly, I've got IoT. We have IoT Hub, where you can simply go ahead, create a stream of IoT devices, and then try to design a circuit, right? If you need a Raspberry Pi device, you need an Arduino, you can create all of those virtual devices here. You can create your virtual circuits and try them and test them, right? Today it's a world of IoT. You say, hey Alexa, turn on the light. You have Google Assistant powered devices. So that's all IoT. Now, if I want to, let's say, move a service from this list to the list of favorites, I can simply hover over my mouse on any of the service, and then you will see this star. You can click on this star, and this is going to turn into a blue colored star, and this service will be added to the list of the favorites. So you can see this service has got added here, and then I can change the order of the service if I want to move it up and down. So it's a pretty much customizable blade. If I want to remove it, I can simply hover over again and I can click on this. So that way you can add a service to the list of favorites and remove a service from the list of favorites. Also, you would have seen some services have got classic written in front of their name. Like we have virtual machines, we have virtual machines classic. So why classic? The reason is Microsoft started their journey back in 2008. That time they had an Azure portal which was called as Azure Classic Portal. From 2014 onwards, they decommissioned the old Azure portal and they have this new Azure portal available for us. So for all the customers of Microsoft who have been using Azure since the Classic portal days, their services have been migrated to this new Azure portal and are available under the head Classic. So that's where we have this Classic services. Also, you see preview written in front of the services. So this preview means these services are not yet generally released. They are not yet generally available. They are still in their beta version. So once Azure releases a service, they call it a general availability of a service. Any questions, any queries so far, guys? Any questions? Okay. So I consider it as no questions, no queries. Let's move ahead. Back to the Azure portal. After this, we have got all services. We talked about this. Now we have a dashboard. I will talk about this dashboard at the end. You also have a home screen. So when you log into the Azure portal, which should be your default view? So you can either keep home as your default view or you can keep the dashboard as your default view. I personally like dashboard because I can customize this dashboard according to my requirement. So this dashboard is completely customizable depending on how you want to have the look and feel of the dashboard. Similarly, you have the home screen where you will see the list of all popular Azure services, the recent resources that you visited, and then you can navigate to the different subscriptions, different resource groups, all resources and the dashboard. Again, these are the similar stuff to where you can navigate. Then you have got a Microsoft Learn link, which is an official Microsoft website to learn or basically go through different online tutorials. We have Azure Monitor, which talks about all the monitoring services, whether it is alerts or whether you want to view some kind of logs or view some kind of metrics. Microsoft Defender for the cloud, a rebranded name of the Microsoft Azure Security Center. This is where we have the Defender for the cloud, and then cost management to look at how much amount of cost have you consumed so far. And then you can go through some of the links like find an Azure expert, quick start center, recent Azure updates that's coming in the Azure, view the Azure migration tools, get the link to the technical documentation. And we have also got Azure mobile application, both for iOS as well as Android. So with the mobile application, I can quickly have a glimpse of different resources that you have created. If I, let's say, have to restart a virtual machine or a web server, even I can perform those operations. If I want to run some PowerShell or CLI command, even those operations can also be performed from this mobile application. So that's where you've got a mobile app. Then we have create a resource. This is one option that I use most during my trainings and webinars. So create a resource is an option where you can quickly go search for a resource that you want to create and create that resource. For example, if I want to provision a Windows 10 virtual machine, I can simply search for Windows 10. I hit enter and it gives me different marketplace options corresponding to Windows 10. You pick the one that is corresponding to your requirement and you start provisioning the resource. So you can see I've got Microsoft Windows 10. I can simply click on this. I select the Windows 10 flavor. Let's say I want to go with Windows 10 Pro version 20H2 and I click on create to get started with the Windows 10 virtual machine creation. So that's how you can search for any resource and then go ahead and create a resource there. After that, you have got search option here. This is where you can search for resources or documentations or services. For example, if I type here as virtual machine, it will give you a list of all the services which have got virtual machine in their name or which are related to virtual machine service. These are the marketplace offerings. These are the official Azure documentation with respect to the virtual machine. If I have a resource, I can also search a resource name. Let's say I have got a Docker VM available. So when I search here for Docker VM, it gives me the resources that I already have in place, which have got the similar name. So this is the search bar that you can use. Then this is a inbuilt cloud shell, which is a browser accessible shell that you can use. So if you want to perform the operations using command line or using PowerShell or CLI, you can run those commands right over here. We have got bash, we have got PowerShell. So whatever guys you are able to do through this Azure portal, all the stuff can also be done using these scripts. If you want to achieve automation, you would be writing scripts. So let's say if I write AZ group list, it is going to list all the resource group. So you can see these are the list of resource groups which are exactly the same that we see here. So using the commands also, you can perform all the operations that we are pretty much able to do through the GUI as well. So this is a very cool functionality, a browser accessible shell, where directly right inside the browser, it opens up this shell for you, which is called as Cloud Shell. This is where you have the directory and subscription filter. So by default, you will have access to one subscription to which all your pricing will be tagged to. But in case of enterprises, you may have access to more than one subscription also, depending on the projects that you're working on, or depending on environments like test development or QA or production. You can have access to multiple subscriptions also. And directory is basically the Azure Active Directory, which is the identity and access management service. So this is where you can see the directories. So this is where we have the directory and subscription filter. This is where you get to see the notifications. So how much of the Azure credit you have got left. So when you use the GitHub starter pack, you will get $100 worth of Azure credit, somewhere around 7 or 8,000 INR. So once you start provisioning resources on a day by day basis, you will be able to see how much amount out of that is left. So you will be able to see all of that information in this notification. When you provision resources, even that information will be available in this notifications plate. Then we have got this settings. So in the settings, first option we already talked about, which is directory and subscription. So when you click here, it takes you to this same page. Then you have got appearance and a startup. In case, guys, you have a smaller screen size and you want a broader field of view, you can switch to flyout. This flyout will remove this specific menu from here. So if I click on apply, it changes it to a mobile kind of menu, right? In mobile, we have this hamburger menu. These three lines are called as hamburger. That is where you have got the hamburger menu. Again, switching back to dock. In docked view, you can just move this inside and out depending on how you like the look and feel. Then you have got different color themes, like a blue colored theme, a light theme, or dark theme. So again, you can change the behavior depending on what kind of theme do you like. Also, for people with eye-sightedness and color blindness, from an accessibility standpoint, we have got a white and black theme. So this is a white colored theme and this is a complete black colored theme. So these are the different color theme options that we have got in place. Apart from it, as I told you, when you log into the Azure portal, you would want to keep the view either on the home or the dashboard. So you can decide your default view or the startup page view. This is where you can switch between home and dashboard. So that's on the portal settings. This is the help option where you can raise a support ticket with Microsoft in case you face any issues. By going to help and support, you can raise a support ticket here with Microsoft. Then you have got keyboard shortcuts. You can see what is new coming up in Azure. You can launch a guided tour to the Azure portal. Some of the keyboard shortcuts that could be good are G plus D, G plus A, and G plus R. This G plus D will take you to the dashboard. G plus A will take you to this all resources, and G plus R will take you to this resource group. So let's say I'm on this help and support. I'm pressing G and D together. You can see it has taken me to the dashboard. If I press G and A, it took me to the all resources. If I press G and R, it took me to the resource group. So that's how you can basically use these keyboard shortcuts to move between these different interfaces. This is where you can send some feedback to Microsoft. So guys, once you start leveraging services, if you like a service, if you don't like a service, you can send in your feedback to Microsoft here. This is where you can sign out of the Azure portal. You can switch between the different directories. If you've got different Microsoft account, you can switch between those accounts. And you can click on this more options where you can view what permissions have you got on the Azure portal. What are the things that you can create? What level of access have you got on this portal? You can submit an idea to the Microsoft. You can view the bill. As of now, you are getting $100 free. But in case you attach your credit card, in that case, you will be able to view the bill. And you can view your contact information as well. Now, let's say as an individual, if you want to start your Azure journey, how do you get an Azure subscription? So for that case, you go to azure.com. You click on try Azure for free. And this is where you will be able to see you have got services free for 12 months. There are some services which are lifetime free, and you get $200 worth of the Azure credit. Now, actually, this $200 worth of Azure credit is valid only for 30 days. After 30 days, automatically your subscription will expire when you go with this free trial subscription. So this is where you can see the list of free services, like you have got Azure Virtual Machine 12 months, which is a Linux VM in a B1S tier, Windows Virtual Machine again in the B1S tier. So B1S is a specific tier which comes with a specific minimal configuration, like 1 GB of RAM and some 127 GB of hard disk space, and so on and so forth. So this is where you will be able to see the list of free services. And then once you click on a start free, it will take you to a page where it is going to ask you to sign up on the Azure. You can, if you already have a Microsoft account, you can use the same account. If you don't have, you can use your Gmail account to sign in. After that, it is going to ask you to enter the credit card details. So you can use any of your family members' credit card. Nothing will be charged to the card. For an identity verification, it is going to charge you some $2 or somewhere around 72 INR. Sorry, 2 rupees. Not $2. It will charge you 2 rupees for identity verification. And then you will be getting somewhere around 13,000 INR or 14,000 INR worth of free Azure credit to use. This is one way. Another is Azure student subscription. Since all of you would be having your university email IDs, you can also go with Azure for students. This does not require you to have a credit card. You will only have to provide in your university email ID, and you can get started with this $100 worth of the Azure credit as well free. Sorry, somehow let me say. Okay, I see a couple of questions here. How is cloud related in blockchain? So when it comes to cloud, in terms of blockchain, you would want to do large amount of mining, right? You would need very high compute for that transaction. That is where cloud gives you the blockchain service. This is where you've got a blockchain service, which is Azure Blockchain. So this gives you high amount of compute in terms of mining, where you can perform those mining operations. Today, if you talk about cryptocurrency, all these cryptocurrencies are generated after mining and then solving some complex data patterns and mathematical calculations, which require you to do huge amount of, which require you to have a huge amount of computing power. That computing power is available to you from these cloud providers. So that's where when it comes to mining, that's one of the use case where blockchain is being used in terms of the cloud. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, then I will quickly give you a walkthrough of how to create a virtual machine in Azure. So let's quickly dive into how we can create a Azure virtual machine. Let's go to create a resource. First of all, we are going to create a Windows 10 virtual machine. We'll select this Microsoft Windows 10. Now, guys, as a part of your GitHub subscription that you will get as a part of a starter pack, or the Azure free trial, or the student subscription, you cannot create these enterprise virtual machines, but you will be able to create these pro virtual machines. The Pro N and Pro ZHCN are specific to some language locales. So you can go with Windows 10 Pro version 2 and H1, or You can go with Windows 10 Pro, any other version that you want. Like we have 20H2. So I will go with this 20H2. Or let's say I go with 21H1. We click on create. This is a general workflow to create or spin up any service in Azure. Now, first thing is you select a subscription. In my case, I have a Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. In your case, it could be a student free trial or a free trial or a pay as you go. So there are different types of subscriptions that you've got in place. We will create a new resource group. I will call this as UPES-VM-RG. I'm just giving a name to my resource group. Let's give the virtual machine a name, UPES-VM. I select the region. Now, as I told you, Azure offers you wide variety of region choices. So no matter though I am in India, but I want to create a virtual machine in Singapore data center. So I select Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is the Singapore data center. We will skip the availability for now. Security, I will keep on the standard, which gives a basic level of security for my VM. Our image is the Windows 10 Pro because we want to create a Windows 10 VM. Azure Spot Instance, guys, is a cost saving option. Do not use this for your development or production environment. You can only use this for testing. So basically, you bid for your virtual machine and you get it at a cheaper cost, or you can call it as, let's say, as low as 90% of discount on the virtual machine pricing. Coming on to the size of the virtual machine. Now, when we talk about the size of the virtual machine, it's like when you go to a shopping mall to purchase a t-shirt, you get the fixed sizes available, right? Small, XS, medium, XL. In a very same fashion, when you spin up a virtual machine, you have got fixed sizes available. So you will have to pick from one of these t-shirt sizes. There is no customization. I mean, I cannot tell Azure that I want a machine with 8 GB of RAM or 5 vCPUs or this much amount of max IOPS. No, that's not possible. Azure has given you a predefined size. Now you select a size which is very near to what is your requirement. So for example, I will go with DS2V2, which is going to give me 2 vCPUs, 7 GB of RAM, support for 8 additional data disks. Like in our physical laptop, we attach an external hard disk, right? In a very same fashion, if you need additional data storage, you can attach up to 8 additional disks to the virtual machine. 6400 of max input output operations per second and 14 GB of temporary storage. The overall cost will be 8309.70 INR per month. Now, this is a per month cost, which does not mean that if I create a virtual machine, this will be deducted right upfront. No, this amount will not be deducted upfront. This will be deducted over a month. So I select DS2V2, click on select. I give a username to my machine. I give a password. This is the username and password that I will be using to connect to this machine. I will have to enable some ports. So since we are connecting to Windows machine, we enable RDP, which is port 3389. I'm also enabling HTTP port 80. We confirm the licensing part. We move on to disk. By default, one disk will come along with the virtual machine, which is the operating system disk, which will have your operating system installed. On the networking, I'm not going to touch base these things right now, but automatically there will be a virtual network created, a subnet created, a public IP will be created via which we will connect to this machine, and network security group will be created, which will have your inbound and outbound rules, like what traffic can go inside the VM, what traffic can come outside the VM. So moving on to management. Here also we will leave the things to default. I'm just turning off a couple of things. And let's review and create this. Sorry. Now, what do you see, guys? What is the cost of the virtual machine here? I'll zoom in. What is the cost for the virtual machine that you see? What is the cost of the virtual machine that you see here, guys? This is 11.38 INR per hour, approximately 11 rupees per hour. That's the cost of your virtual machine that you're paying. So you can see how easy it is to use cloud, how quickly you can provision your virtual machines and pay a minimal cost. Let's click on create to create this virtual machine. So this is where a virtual machine is getting created. And this is where you can see these notifications coming in. So the VM deployment has started. Meanwhile, any questions, guys? Any queries? So Karthik, you have got the starter pack, GitHub starter pack available as a part of the UPS. That is where you will be able to sign up for the Azure account and you will get free $100 worth of the Azure credit as a part of that GitHub starter pack. It is going to take some 3 to 4 minutes for this virtual machine to get created.
Sir, I guess till then we have another question from Maggie Singh.
Definitely. Let me quickly have a look. Does cost of VM vary according to the usage of VM? Definitely yes, Maggie. So depending on what is the size of the virtual machine, the cost is going to vary. For example, meanwhile this VM is getting created, let me take you to this VM creation blade. Now this is where when you select the size, you will be able to see the pricing is going to vary depending on the size of the virtual machine, right? So it's like when you go to purchase a mobile phone, the price vary depending on the configuration, right? Though the mobile is same iPhone 12, but when I go with a 128 GB variant versus when I go with the 256 GB variant, I pay a different cost, right? And then on top of it, here the pricing will vary depending on the usage. If you use the virtual machine for 4 hours, you end up paying for 4 hours. Tomorrow, if you use it for another 4 hours, you end up paying for another 4 hours. So everything is based on the actual utilization. Hope that answers your question. So our virtual machine is created. Let me just simply pin this to dashboard, which is going to create a tile here. This is a shortcut for a virtual machine. Now when I click on this, to connect to this virtual machine, I have got this connect option. We click on connect. We click on RDP. It downloads an RDP file. When we click on this download RDP file option, this is where it has downloaded this RDP file. Another option is just like how you simply do an MSTSC or RDP. You can go to your Windows menu, just type in RDP, go to the remote desktop connection, and then copy this public IP address. So one and the same thing. I have downloaded this RDP. I click on this. It will ask me to enter the username and the password. And there we go. And that's where we are connected to the Windows 10 virtual machine that we just created. For the very first time, it will take some amount of time to launch this because it sets up the user profile because you are logging into the virtual machine for the very first time. But that's where you are connected to a virtual machine which is actually running in the Singapore data center. So that's where we are on this Windows 10 virtual machine that we just created. And then you can use this virtual machine just like any other physical laptop or desktop. So that's how, guys, you can create and provision an Azure virtual machine. In case you create this, also please ensure that you are deleting it. Otherwise, you will end up paying the cost. So right now, like I have closed the virtual machine, but still my virtual machine status here is running. So it's like when you take a Netflix subscription, no matter whether you're watching the movie or not, but you still end up paying the cost, right? So in a very same fashion, until and unless you don't stop your virtual machine from here, or you don't delete the virtual machine, you still end up paying the cost for this virtual machine. So do ensure that when you try this, delete the virtual machine once you have done the hands-on. So that is it for the day from mine, guys. I hope you all have enjoyed the session. The cloud is changing the world, and so we are. Also, guys, you have got Hackathon 6.0 coming up online from 28 to 30th Jan. So do register. Registrations are open. With that, I open up for Q&A. Any questions, any queries, feel free to let me know, guys.
I request everyone if there is any query or doubt, you all can put it in the chat box. Even a
So
pinch
I see
of
a
doubt would be entertained here.
So I see question from Maggie again. Sir, what difference does it make in running different and distant region? So every region offers you a different pricing. So one is the price difference. Another is, let's say, Maggie, you want to create an online application where I gave you this example earlier also, where you want to sell the products to customers in Europe. So you would prefer deploying an application in Europe data center so that when the customers actually visit your application, for them the latency is low, right? They get to visit your application quickly in a very less response time. So you are basically able to provide them a low response time. That's the difference it makes to spin up your VMs in different data center. And every region offers you a different pricing. It's like the cost of iPhone in India versus the cost of iPhone in Dubai versus the cost of iPhone in US. It is different, right? In the very same fashion, the cost for Azure to run this infrastructure in different location is different, and so is the price benefit that you get when you run it in different locations. Guys, in case I have missed answering any question, feel free to repost it.
Well, guys, I think we are in some of the last minutes of our workshop. So if there any question, kindly post it up.
Thanks, Ishan.
Well, how good it was, sir, I can't describe. I guess there isn't any question as of now. Well, again, thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Those all were truly something to be thought upon and acted upon. Well, it's true that every good thing must come to an end, and now it's the time for the sweet completion of this astonishing workshop, for which I, on behalf of the whole UPS-CSI family, would like to convey my sincere thanks to Mr. Ayush Rathi, who've been great today and always. And also, I would like to thank all the participant attendees who have been truly amazing audience throughout the workshop. With this, we expect your participation and presence in the UPS CSI's Hackathon 6.2. Side by side, we would be dropping the respective links for website as well as registrations. I hope we would be meeting soon with another workshop, another day, but with much more enthusiasm and joy. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and keep excelling in your lives. I, Aishman Gusai, with my co hosts and all, on my part, sign off. Thank you.
Thanks, Ayush. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.